Purchase agreement or repo is effectively a collateralized loan. In the US, this totals about $7 trillion and broadly categorized as bilateral, tri-party, and general collateral financing. In this video, we'll focus on the tri-party repo, the key players, and the mechanics of the market. Hey, it's Selvin here from Lambda Edge, where we look at finance and technology. If you're new here, make sure you click that subscribe button, and all the links in this video, including the presentation, will be available in the description box below. A repo is a sale of security or portfolio of securities combined with an agreement to repurchase them at a future specified date. In a bilateral repo market, the repo is typically settled when the collateral provider receives the cash and delivers the securities to the cash provider. This transfer is simultaneous and it is called the delivery versus payment, or the DVP. The delivery of the security is done via the Fedwire security services. Let's look at the tri-party repo and the bilateral repo side by side. In the US, bilateral repo is about $4.2 trillion on a daily basis, and the tri-party repo is about $2.8 trillion as of March 2020, as per the Federal Reserve. The clearing banks that are involved in the bilateral repo is FICC, and in the tri-party is the JP Morgan and the Bank of New York Mellon. The settlement happens in the bilateral repo using the Fedwire, and in the case of tri-party, it's within the bank's balance sheet. To see how the dealer finances his inventory and obtains leverage, let's take an example of a dealer with $1 billion in capital. The dealer can use his capital to buy $1 billion in securities and then repo these securities to obtain cash. If the haircut is 5%, the dealer can get $950 million in cash. With this cash, the dealer can again buy new securities and repo them up to get more cash. Assuming the same haircut, the dealer can then get an additional $902 million of cash. Continuing this process, the dealer can obtain a portfolio of securities worth $20 billion with just $1 billion in capital, and that's why the leverage becomes very crucial for the repo market. Let's look at a sample tri-party repo trade in which there are three parties: the primary dealer, the cash investor, and the clearing bank, which could be Bank of New York Mellon or JP Morgan. The primary dealer is a security-rich organization like the Barclays Capital or the Morgan Stanley. The cash investor typically is a money market fund who's looking for an overnight interest. Now, the dealer securities could be, as shown in this, agency CMO, T-bills, or equities. Now, each of these class of security or asset class attracts different haircuts, and that's depending on the collateral quality. Now, as you can see, a specific account is created in the clearing banks for a specific dealer. Now, at the end of all the Fedwire operations on a given day, which is about 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, the dealers would know their positions of the securities that can be allocated for a repo transaction. Now, financing this overnight is typically like an overdraft that we draw in a bank. The dealer's securities are transferred to the cash investors as collateral, and cash is transferred from the cash investor into the dealer's box for them to trade or buy more securities. This process is what happens every single day as part of the tri-party trade. The repo market and the operational systems are far more complex than what's been shown. In the coming videos, we will have a look at how these two clearing banks have innovated specifically around the collateral optimization problem, which is a mathematical problem to say how these collaterals get allocated in an optimized way. In this video, we've seen how tri-party repo works and how is it distinguished from a bilateral repo. Hope this was useful to you. Thanks for listening.